And she said, "Do you want to smell like human blood?" He was covered in blood.
It was a female body, unidentified.
Had a domestic issue with Shelby and he went to jail.
The most important item they found was a front tooth. Probably one of the most violent attacks I've ever seen in my entire 18-year career.
I see blood everywhere.
If you had any involvement in this, I will find out and I will prove it.
He was pretty mad at her.
We got into a little bit of a scuffle.
Screaming that they should just shoot him. It took multiple officers to get him into handcuffs. This is the kind of homicide case that most of the time doesn't get solved.
It's all bloody in here.
911, what's your emergency, please?
Think he may have been murdered.
We were on the way to Coral Springs. There's a body on the ground on the highway. So we pulled over to check it out. There was some guy laying there. So I wanted to go see if he was breathing. I didn't see his chest, like something or nothing. I see blood everywhere.
On a cold morning in late September 2017, a passing motorist made a chilling discovery along Interstate 25 near the Greenland exit.
111M, I'm at the 167. I'm looking for fire.
These guys in the box truck, they drove by this already once, and they thought they saw something, so then they turned around and came back, and they knew they saw something. But they didn't see anything happen.
The body of a female was found brutally murdered, stabbed 19 times and suffering over 50 other injuries.
When I arrived on scene and I observed the body for the first time, it looked suspicious to me. It was a female body, unidentified at this time, and she had been pronounced deceased. She had a black object, like a shirt or a jacket, covering her face. She also had a floor mat from a vehicle across her torso. And then she had a silver type sunscreen lying at her feet.
I moved this jacket.
Yeah?
I saw one to the neck. I put the jacket back. We pulled this car mat off. I saw approximately 2 to the chest. Can't be sure. Put the car mat back on. So I just want you to know that.
Okay.
I seen 40s female. I don't know.
We treat every as a homicide until we prove it otherwise.
So we're gonna have him start blocking traffic at the 168. Get a fucking block out this thing.
Okay.
Keep one lane going.
Okay.
Southbound, which we can just move over this lane. So
Okay.
we need to get a body or a car for that body.
I got you.
Shelby's death shocked the community and sparked an intensive investigation by the Douglas County Sheriff's Office.
Approximately 2 holes in the shirt, so I'm guessing 2 to the chest. Put the mat back. I lifted the right leg just to check for the good any rigor mortis. All that's set. Talked to the doc on the phone at Cass Rock. She put the time down like about 10:30. I can write this all over for you guys.
Yeah.
How long do you think he was here? Hours.
Yeah, that body's so cold and stiff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else been up here besides you guys?
Discovered, but I don't.
The witnesses said they remember a white Ford F-150 parked off to the side and abandoned up there. So that white truck may be involved in this. You want me to go up and check on that white truck, or do we got anybody to check on it?
Supposedly there's a white Ford F-150 pickup on the side of the road. Stop and check on that.
Every little potential clue might lead to the break that we need to solve this crime. So the quicker we could get to the vehicle to check it out and to make sure that it is involved or is not involved is imperative to start the investigation.
Well, glad those guys' curiosity got them to where they turned around. I can barely tell that it's there right now, especially flying by at 70, 75.
If they hadn't have seen that body when they did, that who knows how long that body would have remained on the side of the road. And the longer a body sits there, the more potential there is for evidence to be destroyed.
Investigators then turned their attention back to the remains.
Fire personnel thought it was an older female in her 40s. Upon a closer inspection, the decedent appeared to be much younger, in her early 20s. When I was able to actually look down and get semi-close to the decedent, it was an indication to me that she had stab wounds and that she was not shot.
To me, I don't see any blood or anything around it, so it looks like it's a dump.
There was not enough blood on the scene, given the amount of injuries she sustained, for that to be the crime scene. We found nothing, no purses, no backpacks, no wallet, no ID, no cell phones, no shoes, none of the things that you would normally have with you.
She was fingerprinted, and she was later identified that evening as Shelby Weatherly.
She was a huge rescuer, so I think 7 was our high number. She just had a real kind heart about him. She had a pretty strong caregiver intuition, and that was something she always loved.
I knew Shelby her entire life. So I watched her grow up, and we were just more or less friends, and you know, she was my niece, and it was a good time. A lot of fun seeing her have a good time. She laughed a lot, just enjoyed the moment, you know.
It really takes a while to sink in when someone tells you that type of news, you know, that you've lost somebody.
Just absolutely devastating when we got the news, and we wanted to know why. We didn't understand why this had happened. You had this empty feeling that you've lost a person way too soon.
The investigation continues at the crime scene.
I wonder if we could walk up the hill.
That's what I was wondering.
Go by the fence line and take some pictures shooting down.
I'll do that if you want me to.
Yeah.
All right.
We knew we were going to have to put a lot of resources, boots on the ground, to go out and try and gather as much information as we could about Shelby herself, so we could start putting together her last 24 hours. That was the first goal. But not having the scene of the crime itself and having to do it backwards is extremely difficult. I definitely remember thinking early on that this is the kind of homicide case that most of the time doesn't get solved. I was actually present at the autopsy. Her stab wounds covered almost her entire body. They were mostly concentrated to her head, face, neck, and chest area. So this was probably one of the most violent attacks I've ever seen in my entire 18-year career. So violent that there was at least one stab wound that went through her lip and actually knocked one of her teeth out.
Detectives started questioning friends and family, starting with Shelby's mother.
Train wreck right now.
Well, naturally.
Yeah. If you didn't, I would think there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Who are her friends that she'd be hanging out with?
She never really went out with anybody that I knew about.
Oftentimes their mothers, brothers, fathers are the only ones that really have any idea of where they're going.
We're just trying to get as many possible ways that we can. People who may have seen her, talk to her.
Her boyfriend that she became involved with, at some point, he called me last night and said he had just seen it on the news.
What do you have to say about that?
You know, pretty much normal. But then after you talk to him for a while, you begin to realize there's something not quite right with him.
People are usually by somebody they know. It's very rarely strangers. And when you're talking about a female victim, the first person that jumps to mind is somebody that they've had protection orders against, because there's a reason for a protection order. And that made him our immediate person of interest in this case.
Do you know where he stayed?
I don't. Exactly, Well, here's his phone number.
in his hotel room, but I just don't know what hotel he's in.
Would you feel comfortable taking him back and asking him what hotel?
Sure. So, can you guys tell me anything that you guys know at this point, or how many wounds does she have?
She did have multiple wounds around her head and her neck area.
And cut her throat?
That's likely what killed her.
Wow.
Here, there is definitely a connection there and a desire to want to get justice on their behalf, to help bring some level of closure.
We're still trying to do everything right by her.
Yeah.
Both for her and for the next Shelby. So there's not a next Shelby.
Detectives bring Shelby's ex Jason in for questioning.
I'm the lead investigator on this case. We wanted to get him brought down to the sheriff's office because this could potentially be a very pivotal interview.
Where do you work at?
The TA truck stop.
How long have you been staying at the Howard Johnson?
This is my second month.
What about before that?
Oh yeah, I was incarcerated.
What was that for?
Well, Miss Shelby, domestic harassment. We got into a little bit of a scuffle. I was trying to shut the door behind me, basically lock her out in the motel. And so she comes like a raging bull. And I mean, there were no marks on either one of us.
The fact that there's been a disturbance, he's been arrested for the disturbance with Shelby, that he has a physical, violent past with Shelby. There's a lot of questions at that point that need to be answered.
When was the last time you saw her?
The last time I ran into her was maybe a week and a half ago on the bus. I didn't really get to talk to her much on each night.
And to be real clear, she was supposed to meet you at 6 p.m. on the 29th.
At 6 p.m. on the 29th.
It's real important because we're trying to track her last 48 hours prior to her. And you know what day we found her? The 30th.
The 30th?
Yeah, we found her on the 30th.
The fact that they were supposed to meet up and that he admitted that was a pretty important detail at that moment.
So I need to know from Friday morning, the time you got up, to Saturday night, everything you did, everyone you talked to, everywhere you went. Where did you sleep? Where did you get up?
I was at the Howard Johnson. I didn't go anywhere.
Okay. Did you go to work at all that day? Friday?
I got my schedule all screwed up. I forgot that I was supposed to work midnight to 8 a.m.
So you were at work from what time to what time?
From, it was like a quarter to 1 till 8 a.m.
Where'd you go from there?
And I grabbed my coffee and went back to the room and passed out.
Common in stabbing cases, the offender will cut themselves. They have misses due to the amount of blood, and they injure themselves. Detectives start looking at his body, his hands, his arms for defensive wounds. He had no injuries.
We started running down his alibi, where he was at the time. The amount of blood loss that Shelby suffered, it would have been next to impossible to clean that room. And there was zero evidence that this was a homicide scene.
It cleared him completely as being a suspect in this crime. So we have no suspects. So we're right back to zero.
Shelby was very hard to track. No cell phone, very infrequent social media use. So we had detectives on the street looking for any known associates. One of the people they came across was Missy.
We are investigating a homicide.
Oh my God, who?
Do you know who this is?
Her name is Shelby. I met her in jail. That is so sad. She's a baby.
We're trying to figure out everything we can about her. And your name came up.
I ran into her. She was asleep on the bus. And I was like, Shelby, and I woke her up.
When was this?
It would have been in September.
Okay.
She called me the next day and went to a friend's house, James, and he said he invited us to go swimming. I don't think it was his house, it was his daughter's or something.
Okay.
She was going to order us pizza. And so she left to go get pizza, and she came back like a while later, and she said that she already ordered the pizza and she wrote a check, but we had to go pick it up. But come to find out, she supposedly, I guess she stole those checks from James.
Missy describes James being incredibly angry over this incident. And without knowing what the motive behind her homicide was, he immediately became a person of interest because of that.
Like, I've hung out with him a few times, and he gets really mad. Like, he throws a fit, and I'll just be like...
You said he was really mad at Shelby. If 10's like as angry as you can be, and 0 is you're asleep, where would you put him about how angry he was over that?
Like he was like 9. Like he was angry.
So when you pair the violence of this attack and somebody who has serious anger issues, it makes you wonder, could he have been involved? Because this was an incredibly violent and angry attack that occurred.
Detectives tracked down James for questioning.
Show you a picture and see if you know who this is.
I met this girl.
Okay.
She told me her name was Shelby.
Okay.
Where did
you meet Shelby?
Shelby. Missy actually brought the girl. Met Missy. We were going grocery shopping that day. Missy had the girl with her. Kind of pawned her off on me.
Okay.
And she helped me tote the groceries back to the house.
Okay.
We fixed dinner. We ate. Missy was supposed to be there, and she never showed up. So it ended up being me and Shelby there. I've not had any contact with her since that night.
Okay. And why were you looking for her?
Because we found out she had taken some stuff. Supposedly she took some checks or something.
Okay.
That's all. I never did find out anything else about it. I know she was old sticky-fingered, you know. Her stealing checks didn't work out too well.
James' version of what occurred was much more benign than what Missy was talking about. He also very much downplayed his level of anger. That's something to be expected. People tend to want to downplay what they've done, how they react. So ultimately, we needed to dig into James more to determine, could he have been involved in her at all?
The last thing, I noticed you're wearing some long sleeves.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have, that's at least, do you mind if Detective Walker gets some photos of...
No, I don't. You ain't taking no photos of me, bro. I don't take photos, period. Even I don't let my family take photos of me.
All right.
But, I mean, if y'all want it, y'all can get a search warrant or something. But I ain't done nothing wrong.
When we were examining James, he did show us his hands and arms, and there was no injuries there. This stolen check situation did not ruin his life as it was trying to be portrayed. It became pretty apparent pretty quickly that it was unlikely that James was involved in Shelby's death.
The detectives again turned to the crime scene for clues, and a name emerged: Mikhail Petrov.
The mirrored sunshade came back from the Colorado Bureau of Investigations and indicated 6 fingerprints. 2 were identified and processed and were found to belong to a gentleman by the name of Mikhail Petrov. It immediately energizes the room. We dive into Mikhail's criminal history, his background. He's a 37-year-old Bulgarian male. His criminal history is significant. He's a violent offender. He's a known weapon offender. He's a bad guy. I mean, he's a legit, true-to-life bad guy. And we now have a suspect that is on the loose that we need to find immediately.
The fingerprints on the sunshade were a very key item of evidence, but they weren't definitive enough to make an arrest right then and there. So just because your fingerprints are there isn't definitive that you committed the crime. The first goal in that was to try and find any connection between Mikhail Petrov and Shelby Weatherly.
As we ran physical surveillance on the European market, we watched Mikhail come and go. He frequented the market on a daily basis.
Detectives did eventually go into the East European market and start talking to anyone in there. One of the people they spoke to was Valina, who was working in the market, and she definitely had detailed information about Mihail, especially the day Shelby's body was found.
Alrighty. Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Valina's interview was very important.
You mentioned to some of the officers, and part of the reason why you're here, that he came into the store one day and
This was between 29th and 1st and 30th. I think it was on the 30th. Yeah.
Can you tell me about him coming into the store that day?
So he came with 3 different pieces of meat. He wanted to cook something to eat in the kitchen.
What kind of meat?
A rabbit and I think beef, and the other thing was lamb.
Were they in packages or?
Yeah, they were packaged. They were bad. They like smelled like, oh my god, like how are you gonna eat this? And I was like, okay. I was like, that smells horrible. And he said, do you want to smell like human blood? He was covered in blood.
I was actually shocked to hear that.
You said you saw blood on his hands?
Yeah, but he was carrying the meat at the same time, and I thought that he's joking.
Given the outlandish nature of what Mihail was telling Valina at that time, she didn't believe him, and frankly, who would? It definitely made me pretty comfortable that Mihail Petrov was involved, at least in some way, in Shelby's.
I think 2 or 3 days after that, he said, I think one of the people is on the TV right now, one of the girls. Have you heard about something like that? It's like, I don't watch TV.
So he was talking about a body somewhere. And that was a different day than when he was covered in blood.
Yeah.
Okay, how many days later was that?
For sure 2 days after. I never turned the TV on, and then my boss said, I know the girl because from the TV, but I actually know the girl from the store. And then they told me that she's.
And you're sure he said that he was one of the girls he killed?
Yeah.
You ever seen him with a knife or playing with a knife?
Oh, he always have a knife.
Can you describe it?
It's not like an open knife.
So it folds?
Yeah, it was like really sharp.
So a big blade?
Yeah.
That really started showing us that, in fact, he wasn't just involved in disposing of her body. The whole goal was to find evidence proving he killed Shelby Weatherly. We went out and recanvassed a lot of those same areas and talked to a lot of those same people. And we did find multiple people who had seen Mihail Petrov and Shelby Weatherly together in various places. CBI was able to come back and say not only was the fingerprints on the shade made in blood, but it was Shelby Weatherly's blood. That definitely gave us probable cause to seek a warrant for Mihail Petrov's arrest. Not for first-degree murder, but for accessory to first-degree murder. Because at that point, we believe we could at least prove he disposed of her body. He was known to be very, very paranoid and looking for any kind of surveillance. So we had to be very careful not to tip our hand. So there were plainclothes detectives that ultimately approached from a bit of a distance. We were not able to rush him with multiple units because we had to stay back a bit. As soon as they came into contact with Mihail, they took their badges out and identified themselves as police officers and told him he was under arrest. And from there, the fight was on. Mihail immediately started screaming that he didn't do anything, screaming that they should just shoot him. It took multiple officers to get him into handcuffs.
Petrov was caught by the detectives in a sting operation.
We still didn't know where the crime scene was. We did not have the murder weapon at that time. So there was still all kinds of evidence needing to be looked into, gathered, and obtained in order to successfully prosecute this individual. So a big part of the investigation was how Shelby was transported to where her body was ultimately found.
We find out through our investigation that the Denver police had looked at a suspicious vehicle that was in a neighborhood on the southeast side of Denver. They initiated a traffic stop on the vehicle, and the vehicle ran. Denver has a no chase policy, so they were unable to chase the vehicle.
Detectives who were working in that area did find a neighborhood app talking about photographs that were taken of this individual and the vehicle in that area.
We also located another witness that saw a male party in that car with a mirrored sunshade that was partially across the front window and partially across the side window, and had taken pictures of the suspicious vehicle.
In addition, these witnesses were reporting him going down into culverts in various areas in the neighborhood and dumping items from the vehicle. And in one of those culverts, we found a plastic bag that contained various items, but the most important item they found was a front tooth. And it took a little time, and it took a forensic dentist and some DNA, but we were ultimately able to prove that that tooth found in that bag on that day was in fact Shelby Weatherly's missing front tooth.
Investigators discovered the car they thought Petrov used to dispose of Shelby's body 18 days after her.
We took that car apart looking for any evidence that would connect it to Shelby's death or transporting her. It did take some digging. We even took this passenger side seatbelt and pulled it out. You could see staining in the seatbelt itself consistent with blood. We found drops of blood on the side of the center console between it and the seats. We found blood underneath the door panels. We really had no doubt at this point that Mikhail Petrov is who killed Shelby Weatherly.
Petrov was arrested on October 13th, 2017, and charged with first-degree murder of Shelby Weatherly.
We're able to charge Mikhail Petrov with the first-degree murder of Shelby Weatherly. Mikhail, at that point, requested an attorney and did not want to speak with the detectives.
I've been asked by a lot of people why I think Mikhail Petrov killed Shelby Weatherly that night. I believe that he gets joy out of controlling women and violence with women. And for whatever reason, whether he was having performance issues or whether or not she said something that he took as a slight, he completely lost control and violently stabbed and beat Shelby to death.
Mikhail, during the trial, represented himself. Mikhail has no remorse for what he did. In his mind, doesn't think he did anything wrong. He laughed about it. He laughed to Detective Duffy that they didn't have enough evidence. I believe the jury was frustrated with his line of questioning. I believe the jury was frustrated with his behavior during the trial. I believe the jury was intimidated and, quite frankly, afraid of Mikhail. Although they were intimidated, they still held Mikhail Petrov accountable for the murder of Shelby Weatherly. Mikhail Petrov was found guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Shelby Weatherly.
Shelby Weatherly's story is a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and law enforcement's relentless pursuit of justice.
Like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime stories that delve deep into the heart of the human experience.